this going here? I predominantly experience my existence, and I know you're going to trip me up on my semantics here, so I tried really hard to get this crafted. My existence, my world, and my life from a solipsistic state. Yes? You understand?
I understand, but I don't think you mean what you've just said.
I actually think I do, but we can negotiate. We can arm wrestle on this one.
All right.
And I carry...
But by solipsism,
yes,
you mean that you believe that only your mind exists?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we
Why
have a problem
are you asking
here.
me a question then?
So I carry... Pardon?
Why are you asking me a question then? I mean, I'm just a cardboard cutout in your...
Yes.
In your
yes,
mind.
You
I
are.
have no inner life, I have no
great...
inner feelings, I have no experience, no knowledge, no thoughts. All of you, I'm afraid, you're all just... What's your name?
Samantha.
Samantha. All of you are just kind of cardboard cutouts in Samantha's mind. You have no internal experience, no... Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, because I'm hoping not to have this experience. I carry grief deep. It's extremely painful.
You carry...
Deep grief. This
but
is
why?
A very...
What
this
is there
state
to,
is...
If there is only your own mind, who or what would you be grieving over?
It's like...
I believe your grief more than I believe your solipsistic view, because your grief is your real feeling, and your grief is because of the loss of someone or something. In other words, you do feel there is something other than yourself, other than your own finite mind.
You've named it before when you've said about this this deep state of we're missing something, right? And I'll call it, I want to go home.
Yes.
I deeply want to get out of this movie. I want to go home. It's like this, I want to go home now.
Okay.
So that's the deep grief that I can identify and have since I was wee high. Yes? So, I love, what I'm looking for is 2 points, two parts. I would like your thoughts on this solipsism, okay, that you can say I don't believe in, but you do look like cardboard creatures, and then when I leave this room, you don't exist. When I come back in this room, you do exist. So it's very lonely in this sandbox. I'm trying to toggle out of it. I'm asking your suggestions because I love your technique or your concept or analogy, whatever you want to call it, about the movie and the screen. It's brilliant. I can pop out. When you do Mary and Jane, I pop out. When you do the wave in the ocean, I can toggle out really quickly. This state sort of it's like this dress. It's huge, right? With the grief here all the time. I bathe in it. Could you please suggest anything, a technique, anything? Because I do not want to be here. And I mean that in many levels.
When you say you don't want to be here, you mean you want to escape from your grief. You want to get out of your grief. You want to.
It's a predominant. It's like the mother lode. It's I would say, and we're gonna toggle on this one, semantics here. I'd call it my nature. My grief, I can go into it in 2 seconds. You've seen it. I can wail deeply from this grief of wanting to go home, wherever that is, longing for that. And I feel that you all are cardboard cutouts. And when I'm in the sandbox, I create you, and I play with you, and you talk, and you have all this animation. I walk out the room, you don't exist. It's very lonely, and I'm being very honest about it. Uh-oh.
First of all, on the solipsism issue, you can't be sure that when you go out of this room, all of us cease to exist.
Correct.
You can be sure that we cease to exist in your experience, in your mind. Mm-hmm. But would you agree that your mind is limited?
Yes.
And therefore its knowledge is limited?
Yes.
And therefore it is not in a position to say, nothing else exists apart from the content of my own mind.
I completely concur.
So just be open to the possibility that other beings might exist.
Okay.
That other beings might exist and that they may have rich inner lives in the same way that you do.
Mm-hmm.
And that their rich inner lives, although possibly similar in some respects to yours, in the sense that they have thoughts, feelings, sensations and perceptions like you do, but their individual thoughts and feelings are different from yours. But in other words, if each of us were now to take a snapshot of our experience, I don't just mean our visual experience, but imagine you had a magical camera that could register your current thought, mm-hmm. your current sensation, your current feeling, mm-hmm. and your current perception. So it's a kind of multimedia, multi-dimensional camera. It's the iPhone 47.
Glasses.
And each of us were now to take a snapshot of our current multi-dimensional, touchy-feely experience. Mm-hmm. And then we were to project those 100 or so snapshots. They would all be different, yes?
Yes.
Or there'd be some similarities, but they'd all be essentially different.
It's like the screen you were talking about earlier.
Exactly,
right?
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay, but now imagine that each of us were to turn the camera around and to take a snapshot of our essential being.
A selfie.
Perfect. To take a selfie of our essential self, of the self or the experience that enables each of us to say, I am. Before we say, I am grieving, mm-hmm. I am a woman, I am lonely, I am happy, etc. Before we qualify the I, if each of us were to take a snapshot, because everybody here can say, I am. So that I am must be everybody's experience. Now, if each of us were to take a snapshot of that experience alone, yeah, and now we project all those images, what would the difference between them be?
Nothing.
Exactly. In other words, that what we essentially are is the same. Not actually this image of I am. If we were to project it, it would have no limitations to it, because the knowledge of I am, our own being, is not contained in anything. It has no limits. So if we, are you with me?
Yes.
If you go back to the first image where we're projecting our thoughts and feelings, if we took an image of your thoughts and my thoughts, your thoughts would be here and my thoughts would be here. There'd be a border between them.
Correct.
They would differ,
mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Likewise our feelings and sensations. But if we were to take a photo of the experience I am, and we were to put them all alongside each other, what would distinguish one from the other?
Zip.
There wouldn't.
Correct.
We couldn't say there are 100 different experiences of I am, in the same way we can say there are 100 different thoughts, because there's nothing to distinguish them. So the experience that each of us has of I am is the experience of our shared being. So that's the first thing I would encourage you to feel this week when you're amongst the group. Instead of feeling I'm all alone, locked up in my own mind. Yes, my own thoughts and feelings are, your thoughts will never touch anybody else's thoughts. Two thoughts can never meet. Two sensations can never meet. But there is something that takes place when we meet one another. There is something as we go for walks together and share meals together in our meeting. A meeting does take place. I would encourage you to be open to everybody here and to feel when you are with them that what they essentially are and what you essentially are the same. Feel that. Don't think it. I've given you the theory, but feel it.
Thank you.
So that's the first thing, which will be an antidote to your feeling of solipsism. Now to the experience of grief. Is your grief always with you?
Yes.
No, is it always with you? Not nearly always with you, but is it
I knew you were going to get
always
me.
with you?
I just knew. Okay, I'll retract that. No.
Nearly always, possibly.
Yes.
But you experience moments of relief from grief where you are...
When I can toggle from one of your tools.
For whatever.
Yes.
There are times in your life when you are still present, but you are not experiencing grief.
Correct.
Therefore, grief cannot be essential to you. You weren't born grieving.
I would agree.
When you are deeply asleep at night, you don't experience grief.
Thank goodness.
You just experience your own being. So grief is not essential to you. It visits you and then it leaves you. Mm-hmm. Now, your being your sense of being has become mixed up with your feeling of grief. So your essential identity and the feeling of grief have merged to such an extent that you feel that you are defined by your grief. It's your identity. But you have to see it's not your identity. Your essential identity is free of grief. Your grief will leave you when you fall asleep at night, and you will just rest perfectly content in your own being. Now, that being is not something that you have to work hard at to find. The being that is inherently free of grief is the very being that you are now. All you have to do is turn round and
take a selfie.
Take a selfie, which means to get in touch with your essential colourless self that runs through all your experience. That you could say it's in the background. Mm-hmm. To begin with, it's like saying the screen is in the background of the movie. The screen really isn't in the background of the movie. There isn't one thing called a movie and another thing called a screen. But it's legitimate to begin with to say that the screen is, as it were, behind the movie. So your own being is behind all your experience. And it remains there, always in the same condition, just like the screen is always in the same condition. Your own being is open, empty, free, inherently without grief or sorrow or loss. So to begin with, we have to turn around to take the selfie. When I say turn around, that is, we have to turn away from the objects of experience. It's like, to begin with, we have to turn the movie off in order to see the screen. But later on, we realize that our own being is not separate from experience, and it doesn't lie behind experience, but actually our entire experience is pervaded by our own being. So when that's clear to us, we no longer have to turn away from objective experience in order to access the peace of our being. We can go out into experience. We're safe anywhere in experience, because experience has lost its capacity to obscure or veil our own being.